The celestial archive of Etherion Prime shimmered like a dream suspended in the void, thousands of glass spires hanging over a gas giant's blue horizon. Beneath the transparent floors, lightning veins pulsed through atmosphere storms, painting the underbelly of the world in light. At the very heart of it all hovered the thing every civilization in the Accord feared to touch: the heart of eternity. A levitating sphere of obsidian and molten gold, it pulsed faintly, as if aware. For 800 years, it had defied every attempt to awaken it. The record said that the first to succeed would inherit the mantle of the lost guardians, the architects of the stars themselves. But none had ever come close. Commander Ryke Carter stared at it with his arms crossed, bare muscles glinting beneath the light of the containment field. That's it? 8 centuries of effort and no one thought to just push the button? Beside him, Ambassador Lyra Veylan turned sharply. Her skin shimmered a deep violet, her silver eyes alive with annoyance and fascination. The tendrils of her bioluminescent hair swayed like ribbons in low gravity. By the ancestors, Commander, this is not a button. That artifact has killed dozens of researchers. Even the Archon fleet failed to interface with it. Ryke gave her a lopsided grin. Story of my life. Before she could stop him, he stepped past the barrier and placed his hand flat against the obsidian surface. The moment his skin met it, the chamber screamed with energy. Lines of molten gold lit up beneath his fingers, racing outward in brilliant patterns that spread across the entire vault. The heart of eternity flared to life, flooding the room in a halo of blinding light. Lyra staggered back. By the stars, what are you doing? The air itself vibrated as alien holograms flickered to life, wrapping around them like ancient ghosts. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the hall. Human lineage confirmed. Guardian protocol online. The ground trembled. Crystalline walls fractured as if some invisible pulse had rippled outward from Ryke's body. Lyra's expression turned from anger to pure disbelief. Impossible. You humans were supposed to be extinct from the old cycle. There are no Guardian descendants left. Ryke squinted through the golden light, utterly calm. Guess we're bad at staying dead. The heart's light expanded, enveloping both of them. Data symbols scrolled through the air like falling stars, scanning their neural signatures. Ryke didn't flinch. He could feel the machine recognizing him, like a lock finally turning after ages. Lyra stepped closer despite herself, her silver eyes wide as her breath caught. The energy wrapped around her too, linking her aura to his. Her pupils dilated, body trembling as luminous filaments connected them. Human and Zirathi, 2 life forms vibrating at one impossible frequency. It's reading me too, she gasped. Through you. Must like the company, he said with that trademark smirk, even as arcs of light surged up his arms. The power should have burned him alive, but it didn't. It felt like breathing for the first time. The holograms changed. They saw flashes of towering humans commanding fleets of light, their armor radiant as suns. Alien species bowed before them, not as slaves, but as kin. The words Guardian Era rippled across the archive ceiling before dissolving into gold dust. Lyra stumbled forward, awestruck. This isn't possible. You're triggering systems that predate the Alliance by millennia. He turned his hand, and the heart responded like it knew him personally. Or maybe they were just waiting for me. The energy around them intensified, forming a vortex that pulled in loose data shards and fragments of the archive. Warning sirens blared throughout the city as containment fields shattered. Lyra shielded her face, shouting over the roar. You're awakening something forbidden. Yeah, he said, still holding his hand against the sphere, the white gold glow reflected in his grin. That seems to be a theme with me. The sphere pulsed one final time, and then quieted. The light dimmed to a steady glow, thrumming like a heartbeat in sync with his own. Every system on Etherion Prime flickered in response, as if the entire world had just taken a breath for the first time in centuries. Silence followed. Only the faint hum of the awakened artifact remained. Lyra lowered her arms, staring at him like she'd never seen a human before. By the stars, she whispered, her voice trembling with awe. What are you? Ryke turned, eyes still glowing faintly with reflected light. Human, he said simply, and apparently that still means something. A deep rumble shuddered through the floor as distant klaxons began to wail. The archive's defense systems were activating. In the upper galleries, figures in armored robes appeared. Custodian guards, energy rifles drawn. shouting in panic. "They'll execute us for this," Lyra said, her voice caught between fear and fascination. "You touched the heart, you changed it." Ryke flexed his hand as the golden light faded from his skin, glancing up at the approaching guards with a calm smirk. "Open the door everyone else was afraid to touch." She stared at him, breathless as the artifact behind them pulsed like a living heart. In that glow she realized, for the first time in her long, ordered life, that this reckless human was about to change the galaxy forever. Sirens howled across the spires of Etherian Prime, a wailing chorus that shattered 8 centuries of peace. From the highest crystal towers to the floating walkways below, light flares erupted in cascading waves of blue. The galactic custodians, keepers of the archive and its laws, moved fast. Too fast. Lyra's wristcom flashed crimson. "They've declared us rogue actors," she gasped, voice sharp. "You activated a relic-class artifact without sanction, and now the custodians think we're insurgents." Ryke Carter didn't even look up from the console of the sleek silver skimmer he'd just commandeered. "Then it's a good thing I don't do well with authority." He slammed the throttle forward. The vehicle shot out from the archive's platform, engines screaming as it dove into the open skyways, massive aerial highways twisting between floating towers. Neon trails of energy wove around them like glowing rivers. "By the ancestors, are you insane?" Lyra shouted over the roar. "Little bit," Ryke yelled back, grinning as the skimmer banked hard, evading a volley of plasma bursts from pursuing drones. "Hold on!" Drones swarmed behind them, sleek and angular, their blue targeting lights flashing in unison. A robotic voice thundered through the comm grid. "Human subject Ryke Carter. Shirathi Ambassador Lyra Veylan. Cease flight or be terminated." Lyra's fingers danced across the hollow controls. "I can try to reroute." "Wait, what are you doing?" "You're flying manually." Ryke twisted the control yoke, flipping the skimmer through a narrow gap between 2 energy towers. "Your controls are backward." "Not for me," he said, turning the craft sideways through a gap that no sane pilot would have attempted. The shockwave rattled them both, but the drones behind weren't so lucky. 3 collided and spiraled into the clouds below. Lyra's eyes widened, silver irises glowing in the reflection of the controls. "You're enjoying this?" He shot her a grin. "Sure beats paperwork." The craft dove, cutting through the underlayers of the city, where forgotten tunnels and abandoned temples slumbered in the gloom beneath Etherian's radiant crown. Lightning flickered beneath transparent floors, illuminating ruins from an older age. "Where are you even going?" Lyra demanded. "Instinct," Ryke said, the skimmer's nose angling down into a yawning chasm. The map flickered with static, the system screaming, "No data found." They burst through a cloud layer and saw it, an ancient structure embedded in the undercity. Obsidian columns and etched sigils pulsed faintly, resonating with the heart's glow that still lingered on Ryke's arm. "Of course," Lyra breathed. "The vaults of the First Flame, off limits to all non-custodial species. Guess I missed the memo." He hit the air brakes. The skimmer slammed into the stone, skidding across the platform in a burst of sparks before coming to rest against a fallen archway. The engines whined, then went silent. Both sat there in the humming dark for a moment. Dust drifted in beams of golden light filtering through cracks above. Distantly, they could hear drones searching the perimeter. Lyra leaned forward, pressing a hand against his chest, half to steady herself, half because of how close he was. "Your pulse is elevated," she said softly, her tone trying and failing to stay clinical. Ryke smiled, meeting her gaze. "Yeah, yours too." The silence stretched. Their faces were inches apart, breath mingling in the cold air. Outside, searchlights swept past the narrow window slits, casting shifting lines across her luminous skin. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The heart's residual glow from Ryke's hand flickered faintly, reflecting in her silver eyes. Then the distant hum of drones broke the spell. "Scanners are sweeping the area," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. "We need to move." Ryke nodded, slipping from the cockpit. They moved through the ruins, the walls alive with faint energy lines that pulsed brighter as Ryke passed. "It's reacting again," she murmured, watching glyphs flare under his touch. "It knows you." "Feels mutual," he said, half smirking as a doorway opened of its own accord. Behind them, a blast rocked the upper level. The custodians had found their trail. Dust cascaded from the ceiling as they sprinted down a sloping passage lined with broken statues of ancient humans. The floor began to crumble. "Go!" Ryke shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand and pulling her into the collapsing tunnel. They tumbled forward just as the roof caved in behind them. The Heart's light, now streaming faintly from the relic strapped to Ryke's belt, illuminated a narrow escape route ahead. They emerged into a hidden shaft that led deeper into the planet's crust. The path glowed faintly, forming steps of pure light as they ran. Lyra glanced back at him, breathless, her skin radiant in the ethereal glow. "You continue to surprise me, human," Ryke grinned, squeezing her hand as the light guided them deeper underground. "That's kind of our thing." The tunnel ended in silence, a vast chamber untouched by time. The air shimmered faintly with static energy, carrying the scent of ozone and age. Massive doors of onyx stood open before them, carved with murals that stretched floor to ceiling. Lyra stepped forward, eyes widening. "By the celestial flame?" Her voice trembled as she lifted a hand toward the engravings. "These carvings, they're pre-accord. No one's ever seen this level of preservation." Ryke's gaze followed the sweeping panels. They depicted towering figures, humans in radiant armor, standing alongside alien races. The imagery wasn't of conquest, but unity. Humans stood in the center of every mural, hands extended, light streaming outward as other species gathered around them in harmony. He tilted his head. "You said humans were just another primitive world, right?" "Doesn't look that way to me." Lyra turned slowly toward him. "That's impossible. Your species didn't even enter galactic records until 6 centuries ago." He gave a small grin. "Maybe the records are wrong." At the chamber's heart stood a crystalline console, pulsing with dim light. Ryke felt it calling to him, its rhythm echoing the same strange pulse he'd felt since touching the heart of eternity. He stepped closer. Lyra caught his arm. "Wait! We don't know what it will." He placed his palm against the console. The reaction was instantaneous. The room exploded in gold and white, light streaming out in ribbons that wrapped around his body. His back arched, a soundless cry leaving his throat as the energy poured through him. "Ryke!" Lyra lunged forward, grabbing his shoulders. Sparks danced between them as her skin met his. And suddenly, she was in it too. The world fell away. Visions tore through Ryke's mind, stars being born, civilizations rising under human guidance, titanic structures floating in the void. Humanity's fleets weren't conquerors, they were builders. Guardians of balance, wielding power not of domination, but connection. He saw the Unity engine, a colossal ring of light-spanning systems, channeling emotion and thought into living energy. The images grew sharper, faster. Humans and aliens linked through shared consciousness. Pairs, groups, entire worlds humming with the same pulse of purpose. The last image before darkness, a voice whispering in the void. "Only together can we rise again." Ryke gasped, falling to his knees. Light flickered through his veins like liquid fire. Lyra held him tight, her own body glowing faintly violet from the contact. "Stay with me," she shouted. "Breathe through it, human." Their foreheads touched and the console responded. The light between them flared brighter, stabilizing into calm waves. Then, the impossible happened. Data streams from the console twisted, merging into a single energy flow that linked both their neural patterns. 2 minds, 2 heartbeats, 1 synchronized pulse. Symbols reformed on the console's surface, displaying new words in glowing ancient script. Lyra translated aloud, breathless. Unity protocol activated. Dual resonance confirmed. The air around them thickened with power. Dust lifted in gentle swirls as a sphere of pure light began forming between their joined hands. It pulsed slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat made of starlight. Lyra's voice trembled. "By the celestial flame, we were never meant to be separate." Ryke looked up at her through the glow, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "Guess we're better together." She laughed softly, almost disbelieving as the sphere expanded, bathing the entire sanctum in gold and violet hues. The murals seemed to come alive, their carved human figures glowing once more, as if welcoming their descendants home. When the light faded, they were both on their knees, breathing hard. The sphere gone, but its warmth lingered in the air. The console now hummed steadily, its dormant systems awake for the first time in millennia. Lyra looked at him with a mixture of fear and awe. "Do you understand what you just did?" You and I, our link, it's the catalyst. This entire place was built for a hybrid resonance. It needs both human instinct and alien consciousness to function. Ryke flexed his fingers, feeling energy still tingling in his skin. Then maybe that's why I was brought here. Before she could answer, the ground shuddered. Deep beneath them, something ancient stirred. A ripple that spread across the void, carried on unseen frequencies. Far away, in the cold black between stars, forgotten machines blinked awake. They rose to their feet, faintly luminous, unaware of what they had unleashed. Above them, the murals shifted once more. The final carving glowed ominously, a vast shadow consuming stars, and beneath it, the same words from Ryke's vision burned into the wall. Only together can we rise again. As they stepped toward the next corridor, light trailing from their bodies, the first beacon ignited somewhere in deep space, an ancient warning flare piercing the darkness. And far beyond the galactic rim, the old enemy opened its eyes. The colony of Varela 9 burned against the void. Once a garden world of soft silver seas and floating citadels, now it was a field of fire and falling debris. Alien warlord fleets, scavenger tribes emboldened by the collapse of galactic order, struck without warning, cutting off communications and raiding refugee corridors. In orbit, a single station still stood, barely. Inside, alarms screamed through the narrow corridors as evac ships launched one after another. Ryke adjusted his gauntlet, sparks dancing around his forearm as the hybrid tech hummed to life. An alloy of human intuition and alien precision, fused through the power of the heart. Lyra moved beside him, armored from neck to heel in shimmering violet plating. Her suit mirrored his in design, the energy patterns pulsing in sync. Every time she moved, his armor responded, like two instruments playing the same song. "They're hitting from orbit," she said, scanning the radar feed. "Warlord Krath and his mercenaries, 8 ships, 3 landing parties." Ryke smirked. "So they outnumber us, outgun us, and outclass us?" Her eyes flicked up, sharp and amused. "In theory." "Good. Wouldn't want to make this too easy." Outside the viewport, dropships sliced through the clouds like flaming meteors. The ground below erupted in streaks of light. The first wave. "Let's move," he said. They burst from the hangar together. Ryke's boots hit the scorched soil first, his plasma blade igniting with a thunderous whirr. The weapon was no ordinary sword, a relic of the old empire, its core fused with the heart's energy. The blade glowed an impossible blue-white, humming like it remembered the wars of gods. Lyra landed beside him, releasing a pulse from her gauntlet that curved into a barrier shield around fleeing civilians. Her armor's runes lit in response to his blade, their fields synchronizing. The bond between them wasn't metaphorical anymore, and it was literal, left flank. She called, "I see them." He surged forward, cutting through a wave of cybernetic raiders. Every motion felt guided, his instincts blending with Lyra's calculations. When he swung, she was already pivoting to cover the blind side. When she fired, he angled his blade to reflect the energy back into the oncoming horde. They moved as one. To the watching soldiers, it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began, human and alien fighting like a single organism. Every strike, every breath, synchronized by something deeper than training. Lyra's voice echoed in his mind, not through comms, but directly. "Behind you." He didn't hesitate. He turned, thrusting backward, impaling an armored brute before she even finished the thought. She laughed through their link, exhilarated. "I didn't say you had to make it look that good." He grinned, parrying another strike. Couldn't help it. As the last wave broke, the hybrid energy field around them expanded, a visible aura flaring outward in concentric circles. The ground trembled, drones short-circuited mid-air, and Krath's command ship withdrew in panic. The raiders scattered like dust on solar wind. Silence followed, the battlefield smoldering, their breathing the only sound. Lyra turned toward him slowly, lowering her weapon. Her armor still pulsed in time with his heartbeat, every glow perfectly matched. "That," she began, stepping closer, "was the hottest thing I've ever seen." Ryke blinked. "The fighting?" Her hand slid up his chest plate. "You, the fighting, the whole thing." Their foreheads touched, armor brushing, sparks cascading around them like falling starlight. The heart's hum grew louder, or maybe it was their own pulse, unified and unrestrained. He exhaled, voice low. You know, for a custodian, you're pretty bad at keeping things professional. Her lips curved into a smirk. Then it's a good thing the galaxy's already falling apart. They stood there for a heartbeat too long. The world faded to silence, the light between them dimming as the moment deepened. A wordless confession in the aftermath of chaos, fade to black. When the morning cycle returned, the colony was safe for now. The heart of eternity glowed faintly between them as they prepared to depart. But something had changed. The link they'd shared during battle hadn't faded. It had grown. Lyra heard him think before he spoke. You're worried. She nodded, barely audible. You can hear me now, even without the link. He gave a half smile. Guess the heart upgraded the warranty. They stood before the viewport, gazing. Out at the distant stars, hundreds of them now flickering with faint new signals, signs of awakening forces across the galaxy. Ryke's expression hardened. If this is what's coming. Lyra's hand found his, fingers intertwining, the air shimmering faintly around them. Then we'll face it together. She looked at him, the reflection of stars burning in her eyes. Together, she said softly, as one. The once great Galactic Council Hall stood in ruins. Shattered pillars of crystal jutted toward the storm-lit sky, their light long extinguished. Holographic banners of 100 species flickered, weakly in the smoky air, fragments of an empire that had forgotten what unity meant. Across the broken chamber, delegates shouted over one another, insectoid envoys clicking their mandibles in fury, scaled chieftains roaring accusations, silicon minds projecting static-laden threats. The great circle of diplomacy had become a battlefield of words. No species holds claim anymore, barked the Dravon warlord. The custodians failed. The humans are extinct. The humans were extinct, hissed a Zerathi elder. Now one walks among us again. Tell me that's coincidence, Lyra. Stood near the entrance, eyes hard, pulse flickering in time with the glowing artifact at Ryke's chest. The heart of eternity. Its light pulsed brighter with every raised voice, as if feeding on the chaos around them. Ryke stepped forward. Each footfall echoed like thunder through the fractured chamber. The noise slowly died, heads turned. He reached the center dais, the very spot where the council had once voted to exile humanity millennia ago. He raised a hand. Enough. The word struck with power beyond sound. It resonated, deep, ancient, undeniable. The heart pulsed in sync, sending ripples of white gold energy through the air. Every projection flickered, every argument fell silent. Even the automated guardians froze mid-motion, as if an invisible hand had gripped time itself. A low hum filled the room, followed by a chorus of voices, old, mighty, and unmistakably human. Holographic figures materialized around the dais. Men and women draped in robes of starlight, their eyes burning like twin suns. Guardian protocol reactivated. They spoke in unison. Human lineage confirmed. The age of fracture ends. The age of guardians begins anew. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some delegates fell to their knees. Others stared in disbelief. The old myths, the ones whispered by dying civilizations, had come alive before their eyes. Ryke's expression was steady. We didn't come to rule you. We came to remind you what you forgot. Beside him, Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but radiant with conviction. Division nearly ended us all. But the heart responds not to dominance, only to connection. She extended her hand toward him. He took it. The chamber filled with light. Their combined energy surged outward, threads of white and violet, weaving through the ruins, repairing shattered consoles, regrowing crystalline walls, even reigniting the ancient council crest overhead. The great spire of Etherian Prime, once dark for centuries, flared back to life, bathing the chamber in celestial brilliance. Delegates shielded their eyes, awestruck. The impossible had just become real. A Vrelian monarch whispered, trembling. They healed the council. Lyra's gaze swept over the stunned crowd. The age of division is over, she declared, her voice ringing through the chamber. Humanity's legacy returns. not to rule, but to protect. Together, we are what the galaxy was always meant to be. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, slowly, the first delegate rose, a bow, then another, then dozens more. One by one, every species lowered their heads, not in submission, but in reverence. Ryke exchanged a look with Lyra, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. "Guess we just started something," he murmured. She squeezed his hand. "Let's make sure it's something worth finishing." Above them, the Council's great banner reformed, no longer fractured sigils and divided crests, but a single, intertwined symbol. The human spiral and the Zerathi flame fused together in brilliant gold. All across the stars, that symbol began to spread, lighting up beacons, starports, and battlefields alike. Fleets paused mid-war. Armadas turned toward the signal. The guardianship protocol had returned, and the galaxy, for the first time in an age, remembered what unity felt like. At the edge of known space, the stars were dying. Vast constellations that had burned for eons flickered and collapsed into spirals of black fire. The void rippled, not emptiness, but something else. Space itself seemed to convulse, folding in angles that shouldn't exist. Ships faltered, sensors screamed warnings no machine could interpret, and then it came. The abyssal sovereign, a shape beyond comprehension, a silhouette of anti-light, composed of jagged geometries that twisted reality around it. Looking at it made the mind ache, like trying to remember a dream that hated being remembered. Every species in the coalition saw something different: a swarm, a god, a wound in existence. The united fleets opened fire: tachyon lances, quantum warheads, gravity torpedoes, a storm of energy that could level worlds. They struck the creature and simply vanished. The sovereign fed on them. The more they resisted, the stronger it became. "It's absorbing their fear," Lyra gasped, her eyes wide as the heart of eternity pulsed against Ryke's chest. Every signal, every panic transmission, it's growing on chaos. Ryke watched the collapsing lines of defense, ships disintegrated like sparks against the dark tide. He clenched his fists. Then it's not just feeding on energy, it's feeding on us. A voice, deep, cold, and ancient, reverberated across every comm channel in the sector. "Unity is illusion. All bonds decay, all light dies." Crew screamed as their systems failed. Stars flickered out like candles. Lyra grabbed Ryke's arm, her violet skin glowing faintly in the reflected light of the dying nebula. "It wants to unmake what we are." He turned to her, calm amid the storm. "Then let's show it what we've become." Their hands met, and the universe shuddered. The heart of eternity burst to life, white gold light flooding across the battlefield. Ryke and Lyra rose from their command platform, surrounded by an aura of blazing fusion. Energy flowed between them in visible waves, their bodies outlined by intertwining light and shadow. Guardian protocol. Full synchronization. The artifact intoned. The fleets watched in silence as the human and alien became one pulse of power. No armor, no separation, just pure connection. Lyra's eyes gleamed silver, reflecting his heartbeat. The abyssal sovereign loomed, its tendrils tearing through the void. Its voice thundered again. "You cannot resist entropy. Love is weakness." Ryke laughed, raw and defiant. "Story of my life." Then he and Lyra moved, together. Their bond ignited, radiating a storm of radiant energy that cut through the void. The light struck the sovereign like a blade forged from emotion itself. Every flicker of doubt, every fear it consumed, burned away in the brilliance of their connection. The creature screamed without sound, its form fracturing into 1,000 jagged shards of unlight. Reality cracked around it, screaming with distortion. Lyra pressed closer, her forehead against his. "Don't let go. Wouldn't dream of it." Their energies spiraled tighter, gold and violet merging into a single blinding hue. The heart pulsed once, twice, then detonated outward in a wave of cosmic resonance. Every ship, every mind, Every being across the galaxy felt it. The unmistakable pulse of love, unity, and purpose. Fear evaporated. Weapons ceased. In that instant, all living souls resonated as one heartbeat. The Sovereign's body imploded, collapsing inward on itself, dragged screaming back into the nothingness it had come from. The rift gaped wide, a hole in the universe threatening to swallow everything. Ryke looked into the infinite black. "Looks like it's down to us." Lyra smiled, her voice soft but steady. "Then let's finish this, together." Their hands intertwined one final time. Their bodies became light, no longer flesh, but energy, thought, and love given form. "Together," he whispered. "As one," she finished. And with a flash that outshone the dying stars, they dove into the rift, two hearts blazing against eternity. Silence, infinite and absolute. When Ryke and Lyra plunged into the rift, the universe vanished, replaced by a weightless expanse of swirling fractals, colors that defied language, and whispers that were not sound. Here, time was a suggestion, and thought shaped reality. They floated, entwined in light. Their forms shimmered, fading between human and alien flesh and energy. Every heartbeat echoed like a sun being born. "Where are we?" Lyra's voice echoed both aloud and within him, harmonizing with his own thoughts. "Inside the fracture," Ryke answered, though his mouth didn't move. "Or maybe, inside us." Their consciousnesses brushed, then merged, memories intertwined, a cascade of moments flashing like constellations. Lyra's first sight of the stars from her homeworld's cliffs. Ryke's first flight test above a blue Earth sky. Laughter, loss, desire, defiance, all spiraled together until there was no longer he or she, only they. Their light pulsed, gold from him, violet from her, twisting into a luminous helix. The universe shivered. Consciousness fusion, 100% synchronization. The heart of eternity whispered in their unified minds. Designation, Starbond, and then came the knowing. All of history unfolded before them. The first humans who shaped the stars, the Zirathi who wove their songs into nebulae, the fall of empires and the long silence that followed. They saw how the universe had always tried to remember love, and how fear had drowned it out. Age after age, now at last the memory returned. The void rippled around them, a sea of darkness desperate to devour the light. The abyssal sovereign reformed, its shape vast and shifting, a wound in existence screaming in defiance. Its voice crashed through the fabric of the rift. "You cannot bind what was never meant to be one." The Starbond's voice answered, neither Ryke nor Lyra alone, but both, intertwined and divine. "Love was the first force, the oldest power in the universe, and you were born from its shadow." The sovereign lunged, tendrils of black fire lashing across the void. Each impact distorted reality, unraveling galaxies in miniature. But the Starbond raised their hands, hands that glowed with infinite purpose, and met darkness with radiance. Every pulse of their hearts sent waves of gold and violet spiraling outward. The colors intertwined, forming vast geometric mandalas across the void, rewriting physics itself. Where the sovereign sought to erase, their light sought to create. The rift screamed as the opposing forces collided. Energy like a billion suns ignited. Every fragment of hate, division, and despair that the sovereign embodied was drawn into the brilliance and burned away. The Starbond pressed forward, wings of light unfurling from their merged form, each feather a stream of cosmic energy. They spoke again, their voice a harmony of love and will. "You fed on fear. We are what ends it." The sovereign's body fractured, its impossible geometry collapsing in on itself. The sound was like every star crying out in release. Then silence again. The void began to heal. Golden fissures stitched themselves shut as the last shards of darkness dissolved into pure starlight. The endless black became a newborn sky. Nebulae flared back to life. The heart of eternity, now vast beyond comprehension, reassembled at the galaxy's center, glowing like a newborn sun. The Starbond hovered at its core, light cascading from their body in ribbons that reached across the cosmos. Every world, every ship, every soul that had once fought below felt the pulse, and knew. The Guardians had returned. As the light stabilized, the merged consciousness began to settle. Their divine radiance softened. Shapes returned, familiar faces within the glow. Ryke's voice, faint but steady, whispered inside their shared mind. Story of our life, huh? Lyra's laughter rippled like starlight through him, through them. You never stop making jokes, even as gods. Their eyes opened together, one gold, one violet. Then let's make sure this story never ends. They descended gently through the luminous clouds, their light touching every star they passed. Below, the galaxy gleamed, reborn, renewed, united. The heart of eternity pulsed one final time, anchoring itself as a radiant sun, the new heart of creation. And from that light, the star bond emerged, gods reborn, protectors eternal, together, forever, as one. Months had passed since the stars were reborn. Where once there had been fear and fracture, now the galaxy shimmered with unity. Fleets that had once faced each other across battle lines now flew in formation, not as enemies, but as one armada under a single banner, the Galactic Accord reborn. That banner rippled across the skies of 1,000 worlds, a golden spiral intertwined with a violet flame, the symbol of the star bond. Humanity's return had become legend, but it was no myth. They were here, alive, leading once more. From the orbiting citadel above Etherian Prime, Ryke stood at the observation deck, his arms bare to the sunlight of twin suns. Below, fleets of mixed crews trained together. Humans, Zarathi, Dravon, and dozens more, their ships moving in perfect synchronicity. No more suspicion, no more separation, only connection. Behind him, Lyra approached, her long bioluminescent hair drifting in the warm breeze of the artificial atmosphere. She had traded her field armor for a silken uniform etched with the same sigil that now shone from every hull in the Accord. They call it the Bond Initiative now, she said softly, standing beside him. Paired species learning to link their neural energy, stabilize the heart's resonance across every system. Ryke smiled, eyes following the dance of the fleets below. Guess they figured out what we did. That connection is power, she murmured. Not the kind that destroys, the kind that saves. He turned toward her, his grin easy and familiar. And all it took was waking an ancient god machine, fighting a cosmic horror, and rewriting the laws of reality. Pretty standard week. Lyra laughed, leaning against his shoulder. By the stars, you humans never change. He slipped an arm around her waist, drawing her close. Would you want us to? She looked up at him, her silver eyes glowing faintly. Never. Outside the viewport, the twin suns crossed paths, gold and violet beams merging just as their hands did. Across the galaxy, countless other pairs followed their example. Humans and aliens standing together at temples, in ships, under banners. The star bond had become more than a myth. It was the blueprint for a new civilization. Even the heart of eternity, now stabilized at the galaxy's core, pulsed in steady rhythm with their joined energy. Every few minutes its light shimmered through hyperspace, touching worlds like a heartbeat from the cosmos itself. Lyra rested her head on his chest. It began with one impossible act, she whispered. Ryke's gaze lifted toward the horizon, where the suns bathed the fleets in fire and hope, and ended with everything possible. They stood together in silence for a long moment, watching the light ripple across space, not as warriors, but as guardians. Then, with the universe reflected in their eyes, they kissed, a quiet promise beneath the eternal glow. Above them, the heart pulsed once more, brilliant, alive, eternal, the symbol of what love had remade. After 8 centuries of peace, war had returned. But love answered,